The United States has been attacked. The United States is in danger. Let every patriot take his stand on the bastions of democracy. We go into battle in defense of our own land, of our present and our future, of all that we are and all that we still hope to be, of a way of life which we have made for ourselves on free and independent soil, the only way of life which we believe to be worth living.
The New York Herald Tribune.
In this solemn hour, the first thought of every American will be of his country. The drumming guns that have no doubts have spoken. That union in face of peril, which was grievously lacking, is at hand. How to cooperate, what one can do to aid the flag that protects us all, becomes the instinctive thought of every citizen. The attack itself, an act of naked aggression committed while Japanese envoys were actually in discussion with our State Department, and the President's message lay before the Emperor, came as a dismaying shock. Because Americans could not themselves take such action, it is difficult for them to conceive of the mind which instinctively acts without thought of law or honor. But if the manner of the aggression was a surprise, the fact that this nation at last finds itself at grips with Japan will hold no corresponding astonishment. The battle is on. It cannot stop in the Pacific until Japanese militarism has been ended for all time. It cannot stop in Europe until the power for evil of Nazi militarists has been equally destroyed and their captives freed. If the maneuver of the Japanese attack was designed with any thought that its surprise would distract this nation from its part in the world scene, in the Atlantic, in Europe, in Africa, the sooner the minds that so underestimated American intelligence are disabused of this notion, the better. We know that we state no more than the simple truth when we declare that this war against our enemies, wherever they may be, will be fought to a victorious end with the last energy, the last resource, and the last ounce of determination of every American man and woman.
The Chicago Daily News.
Today, the United States is at war. We write these words in sorrow. We write them also with a sense, undoubtedly shared by a vast number of Americans, not exactly of relief at this tragic ending of the long nerve strain to which we have been subjected, but of deep faith that all is somehow for the best. We have tried in every reasonable way to avoid what has happened. At the hands of both Hitler and Japan, we've been patient and long-suffering. Thanks now to Japan, the deep division of opinion that has rent and partly paralyzed our country will be swiftly healed. It cannot be otherwise. Once more, we shall be a united people, firm in a single determination to maintain our liberties by the complete and utter defeat of our foes.
The Chicago Tribune.
War has been forced on America by an insane clique of Japanese militarists. Thus, the thing we had all feared, that so many of us have worked with all our hearts to avert, has happened. America faces war through no volition of any American. Recriminations are useless, and we doubt that they will be indulged in. All that matters today is that we are in war, and the nation must face that simple fact.
The Chicago Sun.
War to the death through Japanese and German militarism, or to the death of the United States of America. All that President Roosevelt foresaw and feared and worked against, all that lesser men refused to fear because they could not see, has come to pass. A thing of evil that is abroad and in the world has coiled its ugly body and struck. As Hitler struck at Europe, Japan has struck at America, cloaking words of peace in deeds of war and treachery. Let no one think that this is a one-ocean war, a one-handed war, or a war with one nation only. We have been struck by the Weltschlange, the world serpent, its head in Germany and its tail in Japan. I offer you blood and tears, said Winston Churchill. God willing, and every one of us doing his duty, the American people will make it blood and tears and victory.
The Washington, D.C. Post.
With a blinding flash, the true inwardness of the world crisis now stands revealed for the American people. This was never an intra-European war. It was intended from the beginning as a world war, and America was marked out as the final object of attack. This newspaper has gone on that assumption since Hitler and the Italians leagued themselves with the Japanese. It would be fantastic folly to think of the Japanese engaging in their cosmic adventure alone. On that assumption, thank heaven, all our defense plans have been prepared. Our America, our hour having struck, will go on in the march, and there will be no rest until victory has been secured. This is our rendezvous with destiny.
The Baltimore Sun.
We enter the conflict, which has thus been brought to us, with no sense of fear and no forebodings. We know we shall have to pay a high price for our freedom, but we also know that we shall be able to account for Japan in the Pacific and at the same time keep giving the fullest aid to Britain and other nations now beating back Hitler and his allies in Europe.
The Boston Globe.
So we are at war. We are at war with an opponent whose blustering ambitions have rightly taken him into partnership with Hitler. We are at war in defense of our territories, which have been attacked, of our sovereignty, which has been challenged, and of the principles of fair dealing in the Pacific, which we have sought to maintain during more than a century. United as never before, conscious of the dimensions of our task, we will meet this challenge, nor will we halt until the principles which Japanese brigandage in the Pacific has outraged have been vindicated.
The Philadelphia Record.
In the fateful moment of decision, our government was seeking peace. Japan was bombing American territory. History will keep these facts straight in the future. Let us keep them straight in our minds now. From this moment on, ours must be a resolve by a united people to meet this challenge, to give Japan what she's asked for, and in unlimited measure.
Cincinnati Enquirer.
Fortunately, we begin this long-anticipated war with powerful naval, air, and land forces at hand, with strong allies in Britain, China, Holland, and probably Russia. It is a war we can win and shall win, but we must not imagine it will be easy. The fury with which the Japanese struck yesterday is proof enough that it will be a long and costly struggle.
The Dayton, Ohio Daily News.
The unprovoked action by Japan ends, of course, all conflict of feeling in the United States. As one man, the recreants will be negligible. America leaps today to the task imposed upon it by the insane gunmen of Japan. We muster our powers in all good conscience, happy in the fact that by the effort of the past year and a half, we find ourselves by no means unready for the trial ahead.
Des Moines Register.
It is from this day on the sole business of America and her allies, whether we choose to call them allies or not, to meet the challenge wherever it exists, including all the oceans, and gradually to make our arms prevail over theirs. It's not going to be a picnic, but here the job is. It has got to be done, however long it takes, however difficult it be, whatever setbacks occur before the final result is achieved.
The Akron, Ohio Beacon Journal.
The United States government used every honorable means at its command to avoid war, but the bloodthirsty and incredibly treacherous Japanese would not be restrained. Patiently, and at the end desperately, the United States tried to save Japan from its madness, but Japan replied with bombs. Without warning or provocation, Japan hurled an attack that obviously has been planned long and carefully. Now the United States must destroy Japan as a military power. For 10 years, beginning with the invasion of Manchuria, Japan has been getting away with aggression. That era is over. The Japanese militarists have sealed their doom.
The Providence, Rhode Island Journal Bulletin.
Even as the President of the United States was appealing directly to the divine emperor himself for peace in the Pacific, the Japanese militarists struck at our great bases in Hawaii, spilling the blood of Americans. If the emperor were disposed to consider Mr. Roosevelt's plea, the attack upon Hawaii forced the decision of war from which His Majesty could not retreat. It may indeed well have been the purpose of the militarists to put the emperor in that position. It was a suicidal undertaking of the militarists by its very character, but it had the end result with which they wanted, war with the United States and Great Britain.
The Portland, Maine Press Herald.
It is the United States against Hitler, his satellites, and stooges. If the Congress has the guts an American Congress ought to have, it will refuse from this day to blink at duty. It will recognize verities. It will declare war upon every enemy of peace and decency. We must not only furnish the tools, we ourselves must help finish the job.
The Raleigh, North Carolina News and Observer.
Slipping out of the night on Sunday, the Japanese, behind the mask of negotiation still in progress, seized the value which lies in surprise. Far more important by their action, they gave America immediately the unquestioned power of absolute unity. They dramatized their own aggression and lifted to its full capacity America's determination in defense. A united nation behind a magnificent leader moves in confidence toward its destiny, which includes not only victory in war, but a better world beyond it.
The Charlotte Observer.
The sacrifice may be epical and all-engulfing. The cost in national suffering and blood and misery and woe and sorrow may mount to unmeasurable proportions. But we are a gallant and resolute people who honor the ways of peace and loathe the wickedness of war, and who in an hour of such travail as this will stand by our traditions of gallantry and courage with pride and high resolution. God bless America.
Palm Beach, Post-Times.
The United States will fight the war in the only way it knows how, fearlessly, united, and with every resource at its command. Every humane and human code of our people propels us on to victory.
The Louisville Courier-Journal.
War has chosen us. We shall fight to the end. And we must face the terrible truth that the end will not be found in Japan or on the wide wastes of the Pacific. The end will be found in Berlin. This world revolution takes its orders from Berlin. Japan is the immediate enemy, and she must be destroyed. Nazi Germany is the ultimate enemy, and she must be destroyed. Americans will not only unite to beat Japan, Americans must now unite to finish the job by beating Germany, the source of all our woe. And Americans must also unite to build a world, when this bad time is over, in which our children may hope to respect their neighbors and themselves, and thus to know peace.
The St. Louis Globe-Democrat.
Not a soul in the United States wants war, but the United States has been directly attacked. The war gauntlet has been flung in our teeth. We are at war. Let the totalitarian prophets of force and slaughter now learn how democracy can act in militant national harmony when grim issues challenge.
The St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
Japan, the ally of Hitler, screening her warlike intentions with the honeyed language of the diplomats, has madly issued a challenge which the American people will accept with high heart and unflinching purpose. The issue is force versus reason, savagery versus civilization.
The New Orleans Times-Picayune.
The American people do not shrink from the conflict forced upon them. The Congress will make manifest the national decision and resolve when the President presents the case for congressional action.
The Portland, Oregon Journal.
Among most Americans, there was a feeling, along with the horror and anger experienced over Japan's unprovoked attack, of something akin to relief. Gone was the feeling of insecurity, of fallibility, of irresolution. Japan had chosen war, they said. So be it. We know the worst. Now we can have an unpleasant task and have done with it as rapidly as we may.
The Albuquerque Journal.
The hour has come when there must be unity in the United States in all walks of life. We have only one objective left, the defeat of the aggressor nations in the defense of democracy and the future of our form of life.
The Colorado Springs Morning Gazette.
The cause of Japan's suicidal attack upon the Pearl Harbor Naval Base and other military objectives in Hawaii is as inexplicable as the Oriental mind which plotted it. The effect is clear. It is war. Japan has recognized it. The United States has no choice. Japan now is probably not the dupe of Nazi Germany. The enigma is what she does expect to gain unless it be release, however costly, from an impossible position.
The San Francisco Examiner.
There is only one kind of American now, the kind who is willing and glad and without equivocation or reservation in his steadfast and dutiful support of his country, his president, and his government. There is only one spirit in America now, the traditional and historic American spirit, which makes ordeals and tribulations the very source of the strength with which we defend and perpetuate the rights and liberties of our people. There is only one goal for America now, the winning of a war we did not want and did not provoke, but that will find our inexhaustible wealth of manpower, materials, production, and labor solidly supporting the armed forces of the nation. There must be and is an end now of all domestic issues and differences, of politics and economics and all else, until the war is over and won. We are all Americans now, united and strong and invincible. We have a common and just American cause to serve and support. Let all Americans have one purpose, the successful conclusion of this unwanted war as soon as possible, and the restoration of the peace we desire, and the resumption of our orderly democratic way of life. Let all Americans be Americans in every thought and act, in the high spirit of their fathers, and with faith in the destiny of their beloved country and its cherished flag.
The San Francisco Chronicle.
By the act of Japan, America is at war. The time for debate is past, and the time for action has come. That action must be united and unanimous. Politics is adjourned, whether being parties, factions, or economic groups. From now on, America is an army with every man and woman and child a soldier in it, all joined to the one end of victory. We cannot know how long this war will last, how wide it will range, what it will cost us in toil, in sacrifice, and in treasure. We do know, whatever the cost, we will pay it, and that our reward will be to hand down to our children the free America which our fathers bequeathed to Americans.
The Los Angeles Daily News.
No comment on war with Japan makes sense unless coupled with war in Europe. There are two powerful parties in Japan. One belongs to Hitler, led by military dictatorship under Tojo. Opposed to dictatorship is the anti-war party, but leaders of this party were assassinated as fast as they came into power. Nevertheless, that party was anxious to make peace with us in Great Britain. Hitler had to stop that. His one hope was to engineer this sudden war between us and Japan. Hitler has now played his trump card.
The Los Angeles Times.
Japan has asked for it. Now she's going to get it. 10 years on our part to preserve peace in the Pacific. 10 years of insolent trickery and treaty breaching on hers came to their simultaneous and grimly appointed ends when the first of friendship-professing Tokyo's bombs fell without warning, literally from the blue, on Honolulu and Manila at dawn yesterday. It was the act of a mad dog, a gangster's parody of every principle of international honor, and a self-signed death sentence, murderous savagery among enlightened governments. In its every aspect save one, the act of Japan is a perfect replica of its monstrous Hitlerian model.
The Hollywood Citizen News.
The Japanese challenge means Japan's certain defeat and a new day for the Pacific. To be engaged with Japan at this time may for a while restrict our efforts against Hitler. But when Japan's threat is eliminated, the finish of Hitler also will be certain.
And now, an analysis by William L. Shirer.
Senator Tom Connally, chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, said tonight on the way to the White House that the Japanese attack on the United States possessions soon may result in open warfare between this nation and Germany and Italy. It would seem indeed that Japan's unprovoked attack on this country today had thrown us into war not only with the Japanese, but with their dominant ally, Germany. In other words, as many far-sighted people have been saying for some time, this is a gigantic world war between the Axis nations, Germany, Italy, Japan, on the one hand, and the rest of the world, principally Great Britain, Russia, and the United States on the other. And it is obvious now that the Japanese military clique, which has provoked this Japanese-American war, has gambled all, the whole future of the Japanese Empire, on a Hitler victory. What Japan has done today in beginning hostilities against the United States is to begin to play her role in the Axis attempt to conquer the world. For had the Japanese militarists not believed that Germany would soon conquer Russia and then liquidate Great Britain, it is very doubtful if they would have acted as they have done. What is amazing to the American mind is that Tokyo should gamble on a Hitler victory at a moment when Russia has shown that she is far from beaten and the British Empire is stronger than it has been at any time since the war began. However, that is the business of the Japanese, not of ours. It's their gamble. To be sure, Japan's act of war against the United States today will benefit Hitler for the moment. It will mean, for the moment, that we can send fewer planes and tanks and guns to Russia and Britain and even China. It will mean that we will have to concentrate most of our naval power in the Pacific, giving Hitler a further advantage in his much bogged-down war in the Atlantic. These things benefit Hitler for the moment, but there are other things which work the opposite way. The first is that this country, which was not unified on the question of going to war with the Axis, has been unified since about 2:30 p.m. this afternoon. Indeed, the only dissenting note came from Senator Nye, who was quoted by the United Press as blaming the Japanese attack on the British. But Senator Wheeler did not take that line. He said, the only thing now is to do our best to lick hell out of them. We face Japan and perhaps the rest of the Axis tomorrow, then a unified nation, which will now turn all of its great resources and abilities from peaceful occupations to that of winning the war. That is one thing Hitler had not bargained upon, up until very recently at any rate. In return for what Tokyo is doing for her Axis ally, what will Germany do for Japan? Well, what can she do? She's cut off from the Far East by thousands of miles of land and water. On the land, the Russian army has her blocked. On the sea, the Allied navies. Germany can be of no direct help to Japan. The Japanese must fight alone in the Far East, opposed by the United States, Britain, China, the Dutch, and Russia. About Russia's stand, there is no news tonight, and it's a very important matter. For Russia alone possesses the air bases from which bombers can flatten out Japan's inflammable cities and her industrial bases. If we could use Vladivostok as a bomber base, beginning tonight, it would be of tremendous value to us. Or if our bombers flying the 2,400 miles from Dutch Harbor, Alaska to Japan, or the 1,600 miles from Manila to Japan, could then land at Vladivostok, which is only some 600 miles from Japan's coast, refuel there for a fresh bombing of Japanese targets on their way home to their bases, well, that too would be of great advantage to us. Whether Berlin will declare war on the United States is not known, but it really makes very little difference. Berlin does not declare war when she makes war. According to the terms of the tripartite treaty, Germany would have to declare war in case we attack Japan. But it's merely an academic question now. From Berlin itself, we've heard very little tonight. There was a typical Hitlerian outburst, typical except that it was rather brief. The German people were told this, quote, as a result of constantly increasing warmongering of the American President Roosevelt in recent weeks, the first clashes between Japanese and United States armed forces occurred today, end quote. And then there were a couple of other sentences of similar nonsense. It's doubtful if the German people, as hoodwinked as they are by Dr. Goebbels' propaganda machine, will swallow it. And what will come as a terrible blow to the German people, with their memories of 1918 not buried by any means, is that the United States is once more in the war against their side.
The Navy is likewise on its toes. Admiral Charles Hurt, Commander-in-Chief of the Asiatic Fleet, gave out word that hostilities had opened with an attack on Pearl Harbor in Honolulu. Steps are being taken accordingly, was his laconic comment on that state of affairs. The Pan American Airways Clipper route runs directly across the zone of hostilities. The airline starts at San Francisco, goes to Honolulu, Midway, Wake, Guam, and the Philippines, then on to China or Singapore. The manager of Pan American Airways Manila office says they have a westbound clipper at Wake Island, but none others in the trouble zones, and none at Honolulu. There has been no time to check on what is happening at the clipper bases on Wake and Midway. A reliable source in Manila reports that the Japanese have an air base about 1,000 miles south of Wake in the South Pacific. It would be a long trip to bomb Hawaii from there, but if they sent over big bombers, it could have happened. Manila, of course, wonders when its turn is coming. They noted the phraseology of the Tokyo announcement about a state of war in the Western Pacific. This is more properly the Western Pacific than is the region around Hawaii. Let me repeat, there have been no bombings in Manila yet. We don't know what to expect. Japan has pulled a surprise move in Honolulu, but the Philippines is also at war. Planes from the Air Command are scouting continuously over the coastlines and over central Luzon to intercept any possible attack from any direction that Japan might undertake. We have just received word, not fully confirmed, that Guam is in trouble. The cable company here found its line cut, and then word came along that bombers were sighted overhead at 6:45 a.m. Nothing further has come through. The next word came from Shanghai, which is practically defenseless now with the Marines gone. The United States Marines landed in Manila last week. The Japanese attacked the place apparently at night, shelling and machine gunning the famous Bund, Shanghai's waterfront. They are reported to have sunk a British gunboat and taken over the American gunboat Wake, which was the only armed United States vessel in the vicinity. This boat was in a partially decommissioned condition, acting as a communications contact for the American consulate in Shanghai.
This is CBS in America calling Honolulu. Go ahead, Honolulu. We should like to now try to call in Manila, the capital of the Philippine Commonwealth. Go ahead, Manila. This is CBS in America calling Manila. Go ahead, Manila. This is CBS in America calling Manila. Go ahead. We regret that we are unable to contact either Honolulu or Manila. We return you now to William L. Shirer in New York.
We will hope later to be able to bring you direct reports from both Honolulu and Manila.
It appears that whatever military advantage may have been gained by the early attacks on Hawaii, possibly Manila, Singapore, and Shanghai, and we do not know yet much about the military operations there, but whatever advantage the Japanese may have gained appears to have been outweighed by the political drawbacks of this sudden and unexpected attack just at a moment when President Roosevelt, by his appeal to the Emperor of Japan, had clearly indicated his desire to reach a peaceful settlement if at all possible. An indication of the reaction of those who have hitherto opposed the administration's foreign policy is the statement of Senator Wheeler, who, as quoted by the Associated Press, says the only thing to do now is to lick hell out of them.